The following is meant for entertainment and educational purposes. It is not meant to establish a doctor-patient relationship. Please consult your mental health provider for your mental health needs. Hello, welcome to Chez Eric, where we talk about psychiatry and religion with a focus on how to apply it to your life. My name is Dr. Eric, and I'm a psychiatrist who happens to be religious, and we are going through the final lecture of William James's The Varieties of Religious Experience in his concluding remarks, and this is part 3 out of 5, so we're almost a little bit halfway through. And we will be talking about William James' discussion about reality today. James points out that our experiences consist of two things. The first is the objective, and the second is the subjective. And the objective can be far more extensive than the subjective, but the subjective should not be ignored. There's a belief that the objective facts about life are very, very important, and they're far more important than the subjective. But William James, I believe, would disagree with that. The objective is the sum total of everything that we might be thinking of, but it points outwards, it's outside of us, it's something we have to potentially discover, versus the subjective state, the subjective stuff is inward, and we have to, our thinking of our thoughts of ourselves is the subjective state, and it's our experience itself. So there's an objective space and a subjective space, so outward, inward, that's what he kind of frames it as. Although the subjective experience might be considered small compared to the great objective world out there, it is good for as long as it's there, and it's not hollow. It's not just an abstract concept. It's yours. It's your subjective experience. He says that it is a full fact, even if it's insignificant, and it's the kind of fact which your reality exists. Your reality exists in this subjective space. And if this is the case, then he would say it's absurd to say that the individual experience should be just ignored, and we should just look at only objective facts. Our reality is defined by our personal experiences. They might be biased, but it is less abstract than a science that doesn't take any private, considerations into account at all. It just looks at the abstract sort of concepts that are outside of us. And so, we can only address our individual concerns and questions by acknowledging them as genuine questions. And where the place where we can answer them really is only in this subjective space. That's the only place you can have them answered. And living this way in this subjective space is how you live religiously. By being religious, you are possessing an ultimate reality, the reality of your private experience of what you should do with your life in that subjective space. So then the next question is, what should you do with your life? Is there any general message towards humanity? And so James points back to the fact that we have our feelings first, and then we intellectualize things afterward, okay? We have all variety of thoughts. In religion, there's a whole series of different concepts and thoughts in religion, but notice that there's a very narrow range of emotions and feelings that come with the religious experience. And thus all these theories are secondary, right? So to understand religion, to understand what you need to do, you need to look at your feelings and see them as consistent to the various elements of religion that you find. And how do we characterize these feelings? Well, our emotions can overcome us, right? We can have very passionate states and stuff like that. He points out this concept called a faith state by Professor Lubo, which brings in the biological and psychological aspects of a person. And the faith state can hold some intellectual content, but it is ultimately about having a very strong belief. And this is why there's a lot of passionate loyalty among religious persons, why there is creeds and faiths where they say it together and they choose to be together, and it has an extraordinary influence on people's behaviors and their ability to endure difficult times. And this effect is so great, Professor Lewis says, is that people use their God, and they care very little about who God actually is or whether he exists at all. Is that this faith state is so powerful that they're using, God, using this concept to help push forward, to help do what they're feeling anyway. William James says, since religion is purely subjective, it is then vindicated from any attack from critics that is all subjective hogwash, right? it's not just here for survival. It's not just a mechanism for survival. It is a more permanent function, right? Whether or not intellectual content is there, whether or not it is false, right? It is fundamentally useful. And that is what we are using religion for its usefulness. So just to recap, when we're talking about the reality, it's really our subjective reality that matters. And when we try to figure out what to do, the answer is we should do things that are useful. And what helps us in doing useful things in the religious context is the faith state, where you are able to endure and have a stronger sense of loyalty and passion and endurance through difficult times. And that is the relationship between, the reality that we're trying to get at. Previously the science of religion wasn't really going to work, and what we're really trying to do now. That concludes this particular part. We're going to go to part 4 next time, and then part 5 after, and that'll be it. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you next time. Bye. Hey, sign up for my weekly newsletter. I send out emails every week on psychiatry and religion. I realize that email is a great way to go deep into these topics. So if you want more content, check out chesericpurl.com and subscribe over there. Thanks.